What's going on, everybody?
Hey.
Hey, Dusty, how you doing today?
I'm good, man. How are you?
Oh, pretty good. So we were just asked, before we filmed this podcast, we were asked, how do you pick your topics? And you were asked that, Dusty. What was your answer?
Yes. Kathy asked me, she goes, how do you guys decide on what you're going to talk about? And I looked at her and I said, well, we really don't. we don't really have an idea. At least I don't. I know you constantly have ideas flowing in that big, juicy brain of yours, but when it comes to the podcast, I know nothing until you hit that little red button, and you make me speak.
Oh, so I just need to hit this red button and you'll speak. Okay.
Yeah,
well,
pretty much.
It's working. So, I got something in my head, but I want to ask you a few questions first, Dusty.
Oh, boy.
Are you happy today?
Am I happy?
Like 1 through 10, how happy you are.
1 through 10?
Yeah.
I'm gonna say I'm probably like a 7.5.
A 7. All right. What were you like this week? What was the lowest level of happiness, 1 through 10, you were this week?
Probably 7.5.
Really? A
Yeah.
solid 7.5.
Yeah.
Well, way to go. Okay. So, let me ask you, like, why aren't you a 5?
Why aren't I a 5? Wow, that's a good question. I mean, everything that I've got going on is great. You know, I've got good relationships. Be it personal, friendships. I've got a job in quotations. Some of you may not be able to see that. That I love. It's not something I enjoy. It's something I love. I enjoy coming here, and it's fulfilling. And so, other than that, yeah.
Well, let me ask you this then. If you're a 7.5 and you're not a 5, and you're using the words good and you're using the words great or you love, in fact, well, what does good mean to you? Like, is good like I expect it to be good? Is good better than what you expect? How would you define that on that scale?
On that scale?
Yeah.
Good, I will put good between like a 5, well, 5.5 because it's got to be above mid, but
Okay.
5.5 to 7.5 is good in my eyes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So things are good. So it sounds like to me, right now you're living a life that is slightly above your expectations.
Oh man, yeah. This is funny. You're talking expectations. Okay, yeah. Okay. I not to go on a tangent, but expectations is one thing I need to frickin' let go of big time in my life. So it's definitely, expectations are one of the reason that I'm not higher on that scale.
Ah, okay. Yeah. Well, maybe we can talk about expectations a little bit more because, it's amazing that we do have a choice in our level of happiness to an extent. Of course, there are things outside of our control, which we'll also talk about and how that affects your happiness. But you're happy because your life is a little bit above what you expect it to be. And so when I did some studying under Tony Robbins, one thing I learned from him, he said, if things are okay, if you're like status quo, right, then you're probably meeting the expectations of your life, right? Like everything's all right, everything's good, right? Now, if you're like really like sad, right, then you're probably living a life that's below your expectations, right? If you're living in a state where you're feeling maybe a little depressed, it's often because you're living below your expectations, but because you feel like you don't have control to change it. Which makes sense to me.
Yeah, no, it's an interesting way of putting it.
And then, of course, if you're happy, you're living above your expectations. So, I don't know. That's been something that I think about a lot, something I often bring up with clients, and I think it's an important thing to talk about. There's been a few things this week, discussions that I've had, talking about, happiness and expectations. And people not maybe being where they want to be. But in these situations, in a few of these instances, people who've seen fantastic results, maybe the best shape of their life, best shape since they've been in high school, yet they're upset and they're very neurotic about what's going on because their expectation, they're still not meeting it. And that stinks, right? And I understand, I'm all for about hey, like let's not celebrate too long. You know, if we see some great successes, let's keep going. Don't settle. But look, if we're being honest, we gotta take some time to celebrate, and then we move on. And I don't think enough people do that. I don't think enough people look at the big picture and say, you know what, I'm doing a good freaking job. You're doing a good freaking job. Do you ever feel like that, viewers? Do you ever feel like, you know, you've been working at something for so long, and yeah, you've seen some progress, but you're always trying to move the needle. You're always trying to get that next step, and you might not ever take that time to appreciate the fruits that you've come to create from all of your hard work.
This is interesting. This one's hitting home.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why is it hitting home?
Just everything you said. It's me right now. I mean,
Really?
it's always been me, but
Yeah.
I'm very aware of it. So, you know, it might take me a hot minute to kind of zoom out and view where I was and where I am. I think I went through this yesterday when we did our bench press thing. You know, I was pretty bummed out with what I got, but then, you know, between you, Brandon, and then later on last night, you know, talking to Tina, like, you guys helped me understand that I've made progress, although it might not be the progress that I wanted. It's still really good progress, and I should celebrate it, so to speak. And I think, and I think this goes with anything, is if, you know, you're constantly, let's take weight loss, you know, for instance, for example, you know, you look at yourself every day, you see yourself every day. You don't necessarily see those small changes. So you could lose 20 pounds, but you probably don't even recognize it. But if somebody that you haven't seen, you know, in the time that you were losing that weight sees you after, it's going to be a drastic change.
Yeah, and it's because they aren't expecting it,
That too.
right?
Yeah. Surprise. There's that frickin' word. Expect.
Yeah. It's like they see you and they're like, whoa, like I wasn't expecting that. Like, look at you.
Boom.
But if you see the person every day, you're kind of, you know, you're expecting they're going to look like they did the day before. This kind of goes back. Yeah, I hear you there. I hear you there. You know, when I was going through that training with Tony Robbins, he used an example. And I think it's fitting with the Olympics going. Are the Olympics still going on, by the way? Or are they all over?
I don't know. I don't have television, but I don't think so.
Oh, okay. Well,
America,
yeah. So he was saying that there was this athlete who came from like this third world country. They really didn't have a lot of athletes representing their country, and he was going to the Olympics, right? And if we take a second to think, like, just to have a couple of athletes from a very small country, maybe not even more than a couple million people, like that's pretty cool. Like, you're representing this small kind of group of people, right? On the grand scheme of things, right? But if you're going to the Olympics from America, you know, you got 500 athletes, and if you're from America, like, we want gold. Like, gold is what winning. Like, and this is, and I feel the same way. If I see a silver, I'm like, like that's okay. Like, they didn't get gold, but at least they got a medal. Like, that's how I feel.
I don't even think gold is good enough for most of us now. Like,
yeah, but what happened, he said, was, yeah, like, if you compare the reaction of an athlete from America who maybe gets a silver or a bronze, and then you took this one athlete who came from this small country, right? No expectation for them that when they get a bronze, the whole country just goes nuts. You are the national hero because you got a bronze in this event and represented this small country. And so this is a good example of expectations, right? In America, hey, if you don't get gold, you know, like, hey, you didn't win. But if you're from the small country and you even place, like, you are the freaking hero. You are the man. You are the girl. You are, you know, the woman.
the hero.
The hero. Yeah.
But in America, if you ain't first, you're last.
Yeah.
Remember that.
Yeah, exactly. so it just goes to, I mean, that was an example that I heard that really hit home with me and made this idea make sense, that, you know, we can manage our expectations. Now, here's the issue when specifically I'm talking like fat loss here. Here's something that I see a recurring theme of, and this is more specific around people who have lost significant amounts of weight loss, right? Let's say you're 400 pounds, right? when you first start figuring it out and you start losing weight, you lose weight fast.
Big time.
You're losing 5 pounds a week or more. I've seen people lose 10 pounds a week, right? And it's not like you might not be doing anything too crazy. It's just when you have that much weight to lose, things change fast in higher numbers, right? And it all comes down to percentage of body weight, right? If I'm 500 pounds and I lose 1% of body weight a week, that's 5 pounds. But if I'm 200 pounds, 1% of that's 2. So it would look like a ton of weight to a person who's 200 pounds, but 5 pounds is the same as a 200-pound person in all reality. And so, but as you lose weight, as you lose 100 or more pounds, right, your percentage of body weight drops significantly. And so therefore your progress appears to slow down significantly. So what I recommend, right, is instead of looking at the weight, the raw weight numbers, look at the percentage. Look at the percentage. And I think that will help you manage your expectations a little bit better, make them more comparable. But yeah, that's just a specific example I was thinking. But Dusty, tell me more about I know you mentioned the bench press, but I felt like you had a little bit more in you. I felt like there was more than just the bench press expectation you were thinking of.
No, I don't know. I mean, I set extremely high expectations for myself, mostly unattainable ones. Yet, I would still consider myself, a 7.5 or higher on your scale of happiness the majority of the time. But I just wonder, if I could kick those expectations of myself, how, could I possibly maintain, a 9 or a 10? You know what I mean? It's just, I need to have more realistic, I like having expectations, at least some expectations, because they help me kind of progress. They drive me to do better. So I think expectations aren't necessarily bad, but like anything, you got to have them in, things in moderation. But I am guilty. I also do set expectations of others, and that's where I find I have a very big fault, is that I do set expectations for others, and when people don't meet those expectations, I'm impacted by it, right? And I feel like it impacts the relationship I have with that person. So I think in that aspect, my expectations for others are not as heavy as my own for myself, but I still think it's unfair. So that's why I struggle with expectations. And I'm not sure where it stems from, to be honest with you. I think it's just trying to prove myself to people. I think it just stems from my childhood of not feeling good enough. And so I want to excel in everything. And then I guess the expectations of others is formed from, hey, if I can do this, if I can put the work in, so can you. But it doesn't make it right.
Yeah.
So help me kick these bad habits, Dr. Grindle.
Well, it's interesting.
There goes the coaster.
We're coasting through this podcast. Well, do you want me to coach you through it, or is that what you?
No,
are asking? Okay.
Not necessarily. I mean, if that's the road you want to go down on this episode, we can. But wherever you want to take this, you're the pilot.
Oh, okay. Man. Yeah, it's so interesting. I think everybody's goal, right, is to be happy, but we all have a different context or a different perspective that we come from. And I think that goes hand in hand with the expectations we set for ourselves. So, for example, I might think maybe like you said, you want to prove yourself to other people that you are good enough, right? And so there's some level that you have to reach on that 1 to 10 scale of how good you are at something in order you to feel like you are worthy of that, right? So maybe you've set that at a 9, but the same person who was reborn as Dusty in the same situation, they might think that's a 7, right? I think that's interesting. So I think, going to what makes you tick, why do you why do you function the way you do?
Perspective is a funny thing.
Yeah. And not to like go full on the Tony Robbins train, but he had a system for figuring out, what drives you. And so at his event, he went through the 4 basic human needs. So one is uncertainty, right? The need or want to have change in your life, right? You have certainty, which is the opposite, right? It's the need to have consistency. You've got significance, so the feeling of being important, and then love and connection, right? And that's just feeling loved. And so typically most people are driven by 2 of those things more than the other 2, right? And so if you ask yourself, like, what is driving me? I could say for myself, significance. I want to feel important. I want to feel value, and then uncertainty. I think that's what it used to be, but I feel like I'm definitely you need them all. But I would say uncertainty and significance. What would you say yours are, Dusty?
Goodness, can you? All right, so there's certainty, uncertainty, significance, and then
love and connection.
Love and connection. Honestly, I don't know. Man, gun to my head, probably significance and love and connection.
Yeah. So if those are the main needs that you think of that drive you, then you can use that to kind of think about, well, hey, like, why did I act a certain way? It lets you reverse engineer your thoughts and maybe, go at them in a different way for the future. At least it lets you be self-aware so that you can take actions that are productive to what you want in your life. Because sometimes, if we're trying to prove that we're worthy, well, that's a great motivator and it will help us achieve a lot of success. But if we go too far in that direction, it can also be a hindrance, right? Because if we set that expectation too high, it can make us upset. Maybe we'll even go so far that we might act out of character because we want to, like, we're so focused on that need, even though we don't know it. And then the next part, which is cool, is like once you reach your 4 needs and you get those to a certain level, like a certain threshold, then there are these needs that allow you to be fulfilled. Okay, so those are like our basic needs. The fulfilled is growth and then contribution. So we all have a want or need to do that. It's just much harder for us to do that if we don't fill our own needs first. Right? So until I feel like I've hit those, okay, wow, I've really achieved my needs, then our mind goes to, like, I'm hitting these, but like there's something more in life. How can I maybe give this to others? How can I help other people reach their needs? That's contribution or a growth. Like, what if you're meeting your needs, but you just stay the same? Like, you're not getting better. You're not seeing that. Well, that would be the opposite of growth, right? So everybody, I think, wants to grow in some way.
Yeah.
And if you have those 2 things, I think that makes life go above and beyond. This is the model that he taught me. And this is, I think about this all the time, but it's something that, you might be able to think about and help you manage expectations for yourself, make you think about, well, why am I doing the things that I'm doing, and what can I maybe change to get a better result for what I'm looking for? I think like most of our actions that we take every day, we make them unconsciously. Right. Mm-hmm. And so if you can even make 5% of your actions, 5% more of your actions consciously, like, imagine what that might do to your life over the course of a few months. It could change a lot, I think, Dusty, like you talked about earlier on one of our first podcasts, how just a few decisions completely changed your life, right? Mm-hmm. How many decisions right now are you making that you're not even aware of? That maybe you're missing an opportunity. Maybe you are just you're just reacting instead of taking the time to think through things.
Are you trying to make it so I'm sleeping even less at night? You're trying to keep me up thinking about this crap?
Oh, maybe. No, but I don't know. It's just a good model and a way of thinking that's served me well. And it's helped me with my expectations, and and I just hope it can serve everybody listening. Yeah.
It's a really cool way of looking at it, actually.
Yeah.
Your young mind just amazes me sometimes. You know that?
Well, it's so cool because you hear all these different sayings and quotes, and I think the more and more you hear like these ways of thinking, you kind of realize why they make sense. So like one saying you've probably heard, I've heard, everybody's heard, if you've been on a plane, right, to put your own mask on first. Well, why is that? How does that apply? Like obviously, you got to put your own mask on so you can breathe, right? You got to take care of your own needs before you can really have an impact on other people. Now, is that true? Of course you can help other people not meet your own needs. I think people do that every day. But how sustainable will that be? You might end up, in the net scheme of things, if you give too much without giving to yourself, you might end up needing to ask for a lot more later on. And I don't think anybody who is the type that wants to give stuff without return, I don't think those people would want to get to that point where they're reliant on other people, right? There's probably like this yin and yang that happens, and you just don't know which way it will happen. But so what I mean by this is now we go back to those needs. Well, if I don't have my significance, need met, or if I'm not seeing my love and connection need met, like, can I really contribute to other people at my best potential? Probably not, right? So taking the time to make sure you're getting what you need, setting up your life. It's in the setup, setting up your life so that you can get those things. And that will change everything, because I think once you can start providing like way more value to other people, that's when life gets really, really cool. And I've been learning that as time goes on, and I've been told it. And as I'm able to do that more and more in life, like life just gets so much cooler. It gets more complex, and there's like more responsibility and more stress to go with it. But man, is it cool. It is nonstop. And so, wherever you're at, I hope you can kind of identify where is the hole right now in your life. How can you fill it? And then that will allow you to have even bigger impact on the people you love and the community you love in your life.
So do you think, like, to break it down just a little more, you said people need to work on themselves before, they can help others. Do you think before they can even work on themselves that there's something else that needs to be discovered? Do you think like self-awareness needs to be there before they can even, work on themselves? Or do you think people can actually help themselves without being aware?
Yeah, I mean, you have to be self-aware. And probably if you're listening to this podcast, you are, right? Like, I mean, you might be coming here for the entertainment value, but I think listening or reading self-help books, it just gets you to think differently and look back, right, on actions you've taken. What could you have done differently? Maybe, hey, if I'm presented with this, like, what can I do different in the future? I don't know how to teach self-awareness.
I don't think you can.
I don't know, but you certainly need that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's, and so I don't know where I was going with this. I was gonna, when we were coming up with our logo the other day, we were talking through like, are we guiding people in this podcast or what? But the reality is like, we're working on ourselves as we make this podcast. We're talking through the ideas in our head. We're sharing experiences. We're learning from each other, and we're going to learn from you guys, because there's going to be a lot of interaction with you as time goes on. And of course with our guests that we'll have. And so, yes, like maybe we're guiding you in some ways here because we have had some experiences, but look, we're learning just as much as you. And so maybe, we haven't done everything to the full extent. Maybe we aren't complete gurus. We aren't billionaires. We don't have 8-packs. What else? I mean, we've got some pretty great relationships. I think we've done really well there. Like I'm so happy with everybody in my life, but we're not perfect by any means. So when we wrote the logo, what was the bottom part? It was shared
growth.
Shared growth. Like, we're growing together. We are not the end all be all here. So let's do that together. And that's that.
Cool. I like it. It's an interesting perspective on things that you've laid out there, good sir.
Yes.
I like how your brain works. I really do.
Yeah.
So, in regards to all this, like, you say you need to work on yourself before you can help other people. So just an example, I see this all the frickin' time when people come into my office to sign up, or I get on a call with somebody that wants to get into the gym. The majority of people are like, I've done so much for other people right now, and I've let myself get away. I need to work on myself in order to contribute, positively to my family.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, you see that self-awareness I was talking about. You see it, it clicks. You can see the eye opening, as it happens, and it's really cool. So,
yeah,
if you're in that position, start working on yourself. Now, don't be so selfish as to that's all you do, because you can kind of go too far in one direction. But make sure that you're setting aside the time to work on yourself, because without having, without being in a good place yourself, again, like Hunter's been saying, you cannot help other people, and helping other people is only going to make you better in the long run. So it's kind of a weird kind of like perpetuating cycle, right? Like it all feeds into one another. So it's finding balance. And I'm working on it. As you guys can hear all my stories through these episodes, but it's all something we need to work on.
Yeah. And that's another example, of maybe for a long time you can go so hard on just helping other people and like putting yourself on the back burner. Like, that's when it's maybe when somebody calls us and they're like, oh man, like I haven't given myself any time for 5 years, and like I've got this and this and that, like the doctor said this, right? That's like, it gets you on the other end. So just keep that in mind, and the more balanced you can be, you won't have to get to the extremes. If you can just if you can stay consistent with maybe helping people to a certain extent, but making sure your needs are always met, then you won't hopefully be in a drastic position where you just get to the point you don't have the capacity, or feel like you don't have the capacity, or it's just so hard to get back to that baseline where you feel comfortable and happy. Yeah.
So yeah, to wrap this up, what's the message here? What's the short the short story version? What's the moral of the story, Mr. Grindle?
Well, the moral of the story here is just don't be too hard on yourself, but be hard on yourself. No, what the heck? That doesn't make sense at all. But no, expectations are a good thing, and they will motivate you and drive you to do amazing things and reach your goals. However, take the time to look at the big picture and say, damn, you've done a good job. You've really done a good job, Honor. Dusty, you've done a good job. Enjoy it, celebrate it. Maybe go by percentages instead of whole numbers, because that's more relative, right? When you're comparing numbers, comparing progress, okay, figure out where in your life you might have a hole on your needs, your expectations, and figure out a way to solve that, because that will only allow you to help more people and live a fulfilling life, and not just a status quo life.
Perfect. And just remember that somebody else's gold medal can be your bronze.
Oh, man. What a way to close it, Dusty. That was good. All right, guys. Thank you so much for listening. As always, we appreciate it very much, and we will see you
next time.
Peace.
Thanks for listening.